I'm Dylan Radigan. I've interviewed nearly every CEO and most world leaders during the past 25 years. And now on Bootstrapping, I'm turning my attention to the new CEOs and the irrepressible entrepreneurs leading the next generation of innovation in the world. Welcome back to tastylive. I am Dylan Radigan. Time for a rare and unusual event here in the land of bootstrapping, and a very appropriate one, as we all know, Wednesday this week was a holiday. And as such, for the second consecutive week, I was denied the opportunity to enjoy some truth or some skepticism with my friend Tom Sosnoff. So to accommodate all of us for that extreme deprivation, we have solicited Tom to be our guest here on Bootstrapping, particularly for the series Ideas to Invoicing, to take an opportunity to learn a few things from the man in the beret. Particularly about his point of view on transitioning ideas, of which there's a never-ending supply, into operating businesses that generate invoices and make profits, of which there is a never-ending scarcity. And so, Tom, as you know as well as anybody, there's no shortage of ideas, and there's no shortage of ideas that don't become businesses. And the number of ideas that actually do become businesses is actually extremely small, particularly those that sustain over time. And so you've done it a couple of times with great success. You've also invested in many businesses with less success. So you know both sides of the coin. I know that you've said in the past that, for at this point, you're like, listen, if it's a business that I can work with and be on deck with and be there for every day, I have much more confidence in the business than a business that I'm at this point taking a shot on my buddy's restaurant or my buddy's movie or whatever. But setting aside the obvious bias towards, if it's a business that you control, you're going to feel more confident about it. Do you think there's anything that you could learn or that you could extrapolate from your experience, whether it's building Thinkorswim or building Tasty, that is learnable, teachable, transferable to another human being?
That's an interest that's a it's almost I kind of feel like if I knew that answer, it's almost like you could solve everything.
I agree. It's a very difficult question. I mean, I choke a little bit even asking the question.
Yeah, I know. It's a little it's kind of.
Let me try it a different way that makes it a little bit more approachable for both of us.
Yeah,
because obviously, first of all, even if you tried to do it again, the chances that it would work, like, things happen in the context of the time that they happen and the place that they happen and the moment they happen. So even if you were to do it again, the exact same thing that you just did, the chances that the same thing happens again is almost zero, right? And so let me try this a different way. As you and I both know, I'll just for simplicity say half of what happens in life, whether it's in the market, whether it's in starting a business, or whether it's in traveling the world, whatever, it doesn't matter. Half of what happens is out of your control, and you don't know what's going to happen. And I'm probably being generous when I say it's only half. And the other half is in your control, or some percentage is in your control, some percentage is not in your control. What do you think are the things that of the controllable things, what do you think are the most important of the things that you can control?
I think the fun part about that question is that one of the ways that I like to explain when people ask me about entrepreneurship in general, excuse me, I just had a crazy cold in here.
Bless
I don't know why. It's 90 degrees outside. It's 20 degrees in our office.
Pollen in the AC. Pollen in the AC. You'll be all right.
One of the things I always like to say, Dylan, is I love using the discussion about control, because I feel like most ventures most entrepreneurial ventures or business ventures either fail or don't become successful enough to be sustainable or to grow is because they do not understand whatever leadership is, they really don't understand that how important it is to control what you can control. What you just said is the basis for all successful businesses. When you realize that your success is essentially based on the things that you can control, because there are other factors, the things that you can't control, that sometimes are going to work for you and sometimes are going to work against you. That's just the randomness. That's the random factor of every single thing in the world we live in. But the stuff that we can control is what most people actually take for granted. But that is all your edge. That is all, everything you have is the stuff that you can control. So what drives me crazy is when people blame their failures or let's just say they're not successes, or they're unsuccessful ventures on other things, because it always comes down to, in almost every case, it comes down to just, you know what, let's just deal with the stuff we can control. Let's forget about the stuff we can't control, but plan for it as best we can, and let's move on. I also think that's one. So controlling what you can is the most important thing. The other thing is, I think people are always trying to solve things. And I don't think that building a successful business is about solving anything. I don't even understand the idea of solving. Like, why are you trying to solve something? Or why does everybody say, we've isolated an
Find
issue.
a problem and solve it, and you'll find yourself a business.
Exactly. It drives me crazy. I love the idea of people building stuff because they find it interesting, or they have domain expertise or know-how that's around that subject matter. And so they're not trying to solve anything. They're just trying to build something that's either really cool or really interesting, or it's a mission or objective that they have. I don't like the idea of you trying to fix something, correct something, plug a hole, that kind of thing.
But returning to the idea of control, returning to the idea of not being distracted by things you can't control, which I think is a very common phenomenon, or obsessing even about things you can't control, or trying to control things you can't control. What's on the short list of things that you can control? Like, how do you define the controllable reality? You control your time.
Yeah, that's not really it, because the expectation when you're building something, there's no such thing as controlling time, because the assumption is that you don't there that is everything you
That's what
have
time,
time
all,
wise.
all available. That time is the primary resource, and then
Yeah,
you
of
will.
course. Of course. There is no such thing. Excess time is only when you work for somebody else.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah,
such thing.
yeah.
Um, the things that you can control are is the all the decisions you make and the speed at which you make those decisions. So the things that you can't control are things in the marketplace that it could be cyclical, it could be sector related, it could be cyclical, it could be regulatory, it could be environmental. I don't know the answer. It could be anything. Um, the
But you,
the
but you make it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but basically you say you can control the way that you make decisions.
Yeah, like you can't control your competition. There's all these things that you can't control. You can't control necessarily consumer bias or virality or any of that kind of stuff. What you can control is the decisions that you make and the accuracy of those decisions. Meaning the outcome of those decisions is a lot of that's on you, and your ability to assess something probabilistically your ability to assess something statistically, because the balance of the company or the idea or whatever it is, or of the remaining capital you have could be, that's on the line. All of those things come down to your ability to make quick and decisions, and essentially as many right decisions as you have to make more good decisions than bad decisions. And that comes down to ability to assess risk and to assess probabilistic outcomes. And I think that a lot of people have a lot of difficulty with that stuff. A, they have difficulty making decisions, and B, they have difficulty assessing risk and probabilistic outcomes. And they worry about things that they cannot control, which is like market environments and competition and things like that, consumer trends and all that kind of stuff, or whatever, institutional trends, doesn't matter. And so I think that if you look at all the success that we've had in the last few 2, 3, or 4 decades, it has all come down to specific know-how and quick decision making. And that's it. And then controlling everything we can control.
But what I was thinking as I was listening to you, and it's going down the same line, but it's an interesting exploration. It seems like there's lots of room to get into trouble thinking that you control things, or that you can control things that you can't. That there's a skill set or a value to be had in having the self-awareness to understand that which you can't control.
I think that the awareness factor is a big part of it. And I think when the reason that there's such a small percent success ratio of entrepreneurs is because all of those things coming into working is the statistical chance of all that stuff working is very low, and the statistical chance of making all that stuff working multiple times, to do it multiple times, is exponentially even lower. And so, I think that is, that's why when you have an opportunity to talk to people that have done it multiple times, or that have had that level of success, it's really interesting, because you want, what I've noticed when I've had the really brief opportunity to talk to entrepreneurs like that, the characteristics that stick out to me, it is always the speed at which they make decisions. It is the single characteristic that carries over from one person to the next to the next. I only know maybe less than a dozen entrepreneurs that I know that have been successful, and I'm only judging success based on some kind of the only way I can, some kind of monetary outcome. Okay, just some number. Let's put it that way. But the people that I know that have had multiple exits, over a certain kind of threshold, the characteristic that stands out that you can almost find to a person every single time is the speed at which they make decisions, and the confidence with which they make decisions, and the number of outcomes that are positive in that decision-making realm. So they make good decisions, they make fast decisions, and they make the right decisions. And that is everything. It doesn't matter what the underlying product is. It doesn't matter what the idea is. It doesn't matter what the business is. None of that stuff matters. It's just the speed at which they do.
And do you think that that's a skill that can be learned and improved, or do you think that that is an innate characteristic?
I absolutely think that is a skill that can be learned. I think it's easier to learn it if you need to put yourself in the position. The reason that it's so hard for most people is that you don't have a lot of opportunities to practice to make all those decisions. And I think for the few people that do, that's why I love trading, because it gives us that background of making so many damn decisions that I think it leads to that. But for people that are not in the world of finance, I think that it's a little more challenging to find, that many opportunities to make decisions. It exists. I don't think it's easy. And that's why there's so many failures. I mean, if you were to tie back business failures, and just the low success rate of everything, it all ties back into that. It's just not having enough experience making decisions.
And when you look at whether it's the beginning of Thinkorswim or the beginning of Tasty, how much of that initial period was driven by that the level of self-awareness that you're using now, and how much of it was really more driven by how would I put it, the sort of the emotional or the component where the belief that what you were doing was awesome, and
Yeah,
build it and they will come kind of a thing, as opposed to some strategic framework.
There was a lot of build it and they will come. I think that, you know, a decade or two of working, building other businesses has really helped us before Thinkorswim. And, obviously building Thinkorswim really helped us for Tasty. So I think all along you're building up confidence and skill levels and stuff like that. I don't know if I could have done it at 25 or 27. I think, maybe it took me till 40 to figure it out. And maybe, you never figure it out. I don't know. I would say that there was never a time when we didn't think we could do it. So there was a lot of confidence, but there was definitely plenty of time when we you throw shit against the wall and you just hope something sticks. I mean, there's no question that there was a lot of, hey, this isn't working, so let's do this.
His name is Tom Sosnoff. You know that. This has been a brief but very important episode of Bootstrapping here on Tasty Live. While there was no truth and there was no skepticism, I still got to see my friend Tom this week. Thank goodness. Thank you for joining us on Bootstrapping, Mr. Sosnoff, and we'll see you next week on Truth or Skepticism.
Thank you, Mr. Radigan.
That's going to do it for Bootstrapping. More Tasty Live coming to you right after this.